Okay, let's get started. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Our program for tonight is the eve of Arbaeen, inshallah. We'll get started with Surah Yasin, followed by Marshia, then Majlis by Dr. Liyakat Takim, and then we'll go ahead and conclude with Matam, and then followed by Ziyarat, inshallah. So Ammar, let me just go ahead and share my screen. You share my screen and get started, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah, Ammar.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموت ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالثة فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إن تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلية إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي واجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت الناس صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينصرون قالوا يا ويلنا ما بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت الناس صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلمون نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون وهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمر نكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينظر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا نعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلية لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون وليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون اللهم صل على محمد
محمد وآل محمد. سورة المبارك الفاتحة. كلمين بسم الله.
صلوا على النبي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. चहलुम को कत्लगाह में जब आए मुब्तिला सादात करबला आगे बशीर पर तथा अशआर ये बुका सादात करबला नजदीक कत्लगाह में जब पहुंचा काफिला बोला बशीर आ इस जा पे खैमे थे मेरे आका के जा बजा सादात करबला आबिद ने जब सुनी ये खबर हो के दर्दनाक کر کے گرے بچاک رو رو پکارے اترو کہ یہ ہے ادب کی جا سادات کربلا بے ہوش ہو کے گر پڑی اونٹوں سے بیبیا عابد کی سن فغان زینب پکاری بیٹا یہ جنگل ہے کون سا سادات کربلا عابد پکارے کیوں پھوپھی تم کو خبر نہیں یہ ہے وہی زمین بابا کے میرے قتل کیا گر دیا جلا سادات کربلا سنتے ہی غش جو آ گیا زینب کو ایک بار منہ پہ تماچے مار آنکھوں میں اشک لب پہ حسینہ کی تھی صدا سادات کربلا سب اہل بیت روتے ہوئے قتل گاہ میں لاشا کو ڈھونڈ پائے ہر ایک بی بی لاش پہ بیٹھی جدا جدا سادات کربلا اصغر کی لاش پر گری بانو بشور و شین اے میرے دل کے چین اٹھو پیارے ماں سے لپٹ جاؤ تو ذرا سادات کربلا پانی بھی میں پلاؤں گی دودھ بھی پلاؤں گی جھولا جھلاؤں گی یہ خاک و خون میں کیسی تمہیں نیند آ گیا سادات کربلا زینب نے نوجوان علی اکبر کی لاش پر ٹکرا کے اپنا سر رو رو پکاری ہے یہ کیسا ستم ہوا سادات کربلا عباس کی جو لاش پڑی تھی لبے نہر نہ ہاتھ تھے نہ سر بیتاب ہو کہ زوجہ عباس نے کہا چہلم کو قتل گاہ میں جب آئے مبتلا سادات سادات کربلا آگے بشیر پڑھتا تھا اشعار یہ بکا سادات کربلا صلوا علی النبی اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
Uncle Shabir, Bismillah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Karbala ta'zeem kar آئی بہن شبیر کی جا کے قدموں سے لپٹ تو زینب دلگیر کی قبر سے بے سر 72 تن اٹھے تعظیم کو دیکھ استقبال کو ہے کشتے ہمشیر بھی باپ کے ہاتھوں پہ ہے معصوم اصغر تیشنلا دیکھ اب تک ہے نشانی حرملا کے تیر کی قید سے چھٹ کر ہے آتا قافلہ زوار کا پوچھ لے ان سے ستم زندان کے جاگیر کی قید ہو کر جب چلی تھی سر پہ چادر بھی نہ تھی سر کھلے بازار میں تھے وارث تطہیر کی لاش تھا بے گھور بھائی کا بہن سر ننگے تھی بھائی ہے اب قبر میں پردے میں ہے ہمشیر بھی آج تک رونے کبے وہ کو اجازت بھی نہ تھی اب رہائی مل گئی ہوگی عزا شبیر کی ننھی سی تربت پہ اصغر کی چھپا لے کر بلا کیا تڑپنا سن سکے گی مادر بے شیر کی مادر اکبر بھی آتی ہے کلیجہ تھام کر وہ گھلا کسے کہیں روٹھی ہوئی تقدیر بھی تم سکینہ کو نہ ڈھونڈو تربت عباس پر رہ گئی ہے شام میں وہ لاڈلی شبیر کی ٹھوکریں کھا کھا کے آتے ہے تیرے مہمان پہ کر لے تو مہمان نوازی اطرت تطہیر کی بھیا گلے لگا لو تو جا سوئے وطن بھیا گلے لگا لو تو جا سوئے وطن آئی ندا سدارو بہن حافظ خدا تب جناب زینب اور رونے لگی اور اپنے بھائی کی قبر پر گرا دیا اور یوں رو رو کر زار زار رونے لگی اور کہا اے بھیا حسین ہر چند میں چاہتی تھی کہ آپ کی قبر پر زندگی بھر مجاور رہوں لیکن اے بھیا کیا بے نصیب ہے یہ سی رسول کی کیا بے نصیب ہے یہ نواسی رسول کی جس کی مجاوری بھی نہ تم نے قبول کی پس عزادارو وہاں سے جناب زینب مدینہ کی طرف روانہ ہوئے تب جاتے وقت جناب زینب زمین کربلا سے مخاطب ہو کر یوں مرثیہ پڑھنے لگی کہ زمین کربلا اے زمین کربلا اے کربلا اے سیاد دل گیر الوداع اے قبر ابن صاحب تطہیر الوداع اے قتل گاہ اے حضرات شبیر الوداع اے قتل گاہ اے حضرات شبیر الوداع اے بھائی جان جاتی ہے ہمشیر الوداع الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین الفاتحہ
أحسنت. محمد وآل محمد صلوات الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله. Dr. Takim.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullah. Have been talking about the question of ethics and morality in my past two lecture, and tomorrow will be devoted primarily to Karbala and what happened after Karbala and the events of Arbaeen. But tonight I'd like to finish this topic of ethics by talking more about social ethics. First of all, the Quran tells us, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min nafsin wahida. The address is to all human beings here, that we have created you from one nafs. In other words, all human beings, regardless of their beliefs, religion, culture, nationalities, we all emerge from one self, if you like. So we are actually related even before we are created. We are related because we come from the same origins. Since we come from the same family, the universal human family, then our values should be universal too. Our moral values, our ethics should be at the same human level. As human beings, we cannot afford to show one level of ethics to one community or one group and another level to another. Indeed, this would be nothing but hypocrisy, whereby we show one level of ethics to one, another ethics to another. I find it problematic that in some of our books, we still have old style ethical values, which are what we may call favorable to one group rather than another. So if you read some of our books, for example, we are told that it is wajib to save a Muslim life, but it's not wajib to save a non-Muslim life. If you find a non-Muslim dying, it's good to help him, but you don't have to. Whereas if it's a Muslim who's dying, you have to help him. There are others which say that you can accept organs from non-Muslims, but you cannot give your organ to them. In other words, if you need an organ, a kidney or whatever, it's okay, it's fine to accept it from them. But you can't give it to them even if they are dying. There are others which say, for example, that the value of a non-Muslim, the life value, is a 12th of that of a Muslim. In other words, the value of a kafir, for example, according to our books, is 800 dirhams, whereas the value of a Muslim is 10,000 dirhams. Such things, and you'll find quite a few of these things, are problematic to say the least. Because as I've been saying, that when we have immoral laws, unethical laws, then we are making God unethical, na'udhu billah, because these laws that we follow are supposed to come from him. How can a God who is ethical and moral issue immoral laws? We are actually imputing and ascribing injustice, na'udhu billah, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My sisters and brothers, it may surprise you, but I'm talking about my own personal experience. I feel I have become a better human being after coming to the West. When I grew up in Tanzania, I had this very myopic, very narrow, parochial idea that only Muslims are good. Everybody else is kafir and najis and they're going to go to hell, etc. But for me personally, the understanding of what it means to be a good human being has changed. Sometimes I find, and this is my experience, and you may find the same, that some of these people who we call kafir are actually better Muslims than our fellow Muslim brothers and sisters. They practice the values and the principles of Islam better than sometimes Muslims do. Therefore, because our understanding of what it means to be human and the morality that is due to other human beings has changed now, we no longer think along the lines that we used to think 30, 40 years ago in Africa. We are therefore in search for a new language, not the physical language, but a different kind of language which has two dimensions to it. One is a universal language, and the other one is a moral language. In other words, the two are connected. There are two aspects to this language. Why are these important? Universal, because then we are able to connect and touch all human beings, regardless of their faith. In other words, the law, the ethics will be the same, regardless of who we are connecting with. The second is it has to be moral, because all human beings can understand that moral language, the moral of ethical values, as I've been saying. What this does is to bring people of different faiths, different communities together. Remember this much, and I would like you to share this with our non-Muslim friends. We do not need to share a religion to get along. We don't need to share a religion to get along. What we need is to share common moral values. And therefore, even when the Quran is talking to kuffar, remember in Mecca, is talking to kuffar who do not share the same values or religion as the Prophet. What does he tell them? Lakum dinukum waliya din. To you is your religion, to me is mine. We can live together. You can follow what you want to, we'll follow what we want to. Where can we find this universal moral language then? A language which is ethical, and yet it is more universal at the same time. It's very interesting that we find it in the Quran itself. You find that moral language in the Quran and universal at the same time. Why? Because the Quran does not distinguish when it comes to the sacredness of life, sanctity of life. The Quran does not distinguish between Muslim and non-Muslim. As I was saying yesterday, it says, you save one human being, you save the whole of humanity. It does not say you save one Muslim soul. It says you save one soul, you save one human being, you've saved the whole of humanity. The Quran goes further because it's not only tolerant, it's also very embracing. There is a difference, by the way, between tolerance and embracing. Tolerance means you are there, I'm here, I just tolerate you. You can live with the way you want, I live with the way I want. That's tolerant. But the Quran goes even further. It embraces fellow human beings. And therefore it says, وَلَا تَسُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Do not curse, do not revile, do not insult those who believe in other gods. Because if you curse their gods, you vilify and insult their gods, they will insult yours. The Quran does not want to build a culture of hatred. It wants to build a culture of ethics and morality. And therefore you'll find that even when it comes to speaking to non-Muslims, remember here the Quran is referring to non-Muslims. It's not even talking about the akhlaq of speech between Muslims. It's talking of the morality of how to address non-Muslims. It says that you should talk to them, in the best possible manner. That do not talk to them except in the best possible manner. The word that the Quran uses, he is ahsan. وَلَا تُجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Do not talk to them except in the best way. Not in a good way, but the best way. To whom? To non-Muslims. This is the akhlaq, the universality of the language of the Quran. The Quran goes even further when it comes to this moral language. It says that you should wa'fu anhum, that forgive them, even if they do wrong to you. Why? Inna Allah yuhibbul muhsinin. Even that act of forgiving somebody, whether Muslim or not, is immaterial. You forgive somebody, Allah loves you because of that. Because it's a beautiful act. You haven't done anything, you've just forgiven somebody. Look at the language, the moral language that the Quran addresses. And as I said, we have never really understood, in my view, the akhlaq, the language of morality that the Quran wants us to adopt. It says, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنُ وَلَا سَيِّئَةٌ, that evil and goodness are not the same. إِدْفَى بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. So when somebody does wrong to you, you do good to them. إِدْفَى بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Again, the superlative is used. Repel evil or repel hatred with the best form of akhlaq. Can you see now the language of the Quran? The universality and the morality of the Quran. And again, it does not distinguish between Muslims and non-Muslims. It doesn't say that you should talk to non-Muslims in a worse way than Muslims. وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ إِسْتَجَارَكَ, the Quran tells the Prophet. This is a language, again, that we need to understand. If one of the mushriks, the Quran is saying, one of the mushrik comes to you seeking protection, seeking asylum, فَأَجِرْهُ, then you must give them protection. Why? حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ, because through you they can hear the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can a non-Muslim hear the word of Allah through me? By my actions, by my akhlaq. In other words, when we welcome even a non-Muslim, a mushrik, a polytheist, a pagan, Budparast, but even then talk to them in a beautiful way so that they can hear the speech of Allah through us. We become the ambassadors of Allah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. Why is the Quran so much concerned about refugees? Do you know? Because when we betray a refugee, we are betraying our humanity. Refugees are very vulnerable. They don't have a place to go. They have no home. And therefore the Quran says, welcome them and keep them safe. And when they want to leave, وَأَبْلِغْهُمْ مَأْمَنًا, make sure that they go to a place of safety. Don't dump them in the desert. Again, I want us to emphasize and understand the universality and the morality of the language of the Quran. In pre-Islamic days, before the coming of Islam, the nobility, your honor lay in the tribe that you belong to. You belong to a powerful tribe, you are more honorable. You belong to this Qabila, you have more prestige. Instead, the Quran wiped all of this off. It says there is only the language of humanity. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And this address again is to all human beings. The most noble of you in the eyes of Allah is the most pious of you, the most morally, ethically good person. In other words, it doesn't matter which tribe, no, it doesn't matter which family. Inna akramakum indallah. The language here that the Quran is using is karama, dignity. The most noble in front of Allah, atqakum, is the one who has the best ethics, the best taqwa. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Dignity, my friends, knows no boundary. This is the coming from the Quran itself. Unfortunately, I think that we Muslims have forgotten the Quran. These laws that I was telling you, which discriminate between Muslims and non-Muslims, they're not in the Quran. They're in the books, in our textbooks. But look at the Quran says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, the Quran says. We, that is Allah, has given karamat, dignity to all human beings, Bani Adam. لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've given them all, the Bani Adam, we've given them dignity. Only Allah gives you dignity, and only Allah has a right to take away that dignity. I cannot touch your reputation. I cannot touch your dignity. Indeed, this sense of dignity is pervasive, what we call ubiquitous, all over in the Quran. So much so that the Quran is very, very careful how it addresses how we should speak. And therefore there it says, وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. This verse is about when we talk to the senior citizens. Look at how careful the Quran is when we talk to us. Why? Because seniors are also very vulnerable. They're frustrated because for all their life they've been free, they've been mobile, they could do what they like. Suddenly they find themselves confined. Sometimes they cannot even walk properly. They cannot even eat. And it's easy for us to get frustrated because of their seniority, because of their immobility. And the Quran tells us that قُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, that speak to them in the most beautiful and dignified manner. Again, dignity is equal to ethics. Our ethics should show in the dignity that we accord and give to our senior citizens. Karama then allows people of different religion, different faith groups, different nationality to get along well. Islam goes even further, my friends, that even when you see someone who is a drunkard, someone who is a druggie, for example, they should distinguish between his action and his personality. In other words, we still do not have a right to touch his dignity. Yes, we do not condone or agree with his action. But the fact is that drug-infected person, or the one who is a drunkard, is a soul that's crying out for help. Is trying to reach out to us because he or she has a problem. So although we may condemn the act, we still need to help that person because they need help. Ayatollah Muntaziri had a particular act that he defined in his book. He said that even when we administer punishment, an Islamic punishment, if you like, whatever kind it is, do not violate that criminal's dignity. In other words, do not administer a punishment in public which make him feel undignified. Do not humiliate him, in other words. Even Ayatollah Bojnordi, some of these laws, by the new laws, the question of dignity, are coming from Iran, within the seminary in Qom. Even Bojnordi says that if we find that stoning can demean a person, can humiliate a person, then we should look for another way of administering punishment. After all, what is the purpose of punishment? Is to correct someone's behavior that he or she has done wrong. We can correct that behavior in another way without humiliating that person. This sense of ethical and dignified behavior is not only when a person is alive. Even after somebody dies, we are supposed to preserve that mayyit's dignity. And therefore, we are told that bury a person, the body, as soon as possible. Moreover, never speak ill of the dead. Therefore, when we recite the Salatul Janazah, even though we know that that person has done wrong, but what do we say? Inna la na'lamu minhu illa khayra. That we do not know except good about them. In other words, we hide whatever evil that person may have done. It's as if we are telling Allah, you brought him with a clean slate, take him back with a clean slate and forgive him or her their sins. My sisters and brothers, let us not forget, Allah has not only created us, He has mercified not only us, but everything that Allah has created has got Allah's mercy in it. We say this in Dua Kumail. Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay. Oh my Lord, I implore you, I ask you by your mercy which has touched each and everything. As'aluka bi rahmatika allati. I ask you by your rahmah which has touched and it covers each and everything. The Quran reminds us that in our action, Allah is witnessing us. He knows of everything. Having said all this, I'm still reminded of those people who commit acts of horror, as I was saying yesterday, of terror, in the name of religion. This so-called jihad, in my understanding, is nothing but a way to cover up their terrible deeds. They cover their deeds with the name of religion by saying this is jihad. If religion can destroy because the people misuse religion, it can also heal and bring people together. Many a time, it takes evil or terrible things to happen to bring out the good within us. You find so many times that when people suffer, so all kinds of evil actions that people come together to help out. As I was saying the first lecture, look at now what happened to the COVID. People are calling each other. They are bonding together. If religion can destroy, it can also heal, my friends. It is through religion, in many cases, that we share our love and show what it means to be good human beings, because that is the essence of Islam. And therefore, the Prophet ﷺ was asked, this is the Prophet who is told, Anta ala khuluqin azim. He was asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is Islam? What is Islam? And he says in one very beautiful and short sentence, Al-Islamu huwa ta'atu lillahi wa shafaqa lil makhluqat. Islam is to obey God and to be kind to the whole creation of Allah. Not only creatures, everything that Allah has created deserves our respect. That is the khulq, the ethics that Islam wants us to observe. Let us not forget that as Allah is eternal, He speaks to us eternally. He does not stop speaking to us because the Prophet is no longer with us. We do not compete for religion. Unfortunately, as human beings, we've set up ourselves like God. We haven't gone towards God. We brought God down to us. We are trying to do His job to decide who's going to go to heaven and hell. Instead of us becoming God-like, we've made God human-like. The Quran says, do not compete for religion. What should we compete for? Fastabiqul khairat. That you compete for virtue, for goodness. That should be our competition as to who is doing the most virtuous of deeds. This akhlaq that I've been talking about can also or is known also through our aql. If you remember, I said the very first night that we believe that our first point of contact, the akhlaq, is through the intellect, through the conscious. The conscious tells us what is right and what is wrong. The Quran did not come to replace our intellect. It came to empower and advance it. Many a time people think that, well, we just leave the thinking to my Ayatollah and I'll just follow. No, you don't follow like that. The taqleed is only in the furu ad-din, not on the usul. Let's not forget that. In our basic day-to-day transaction, Allah gave us this in order to use it, not to abuse it. He gave us the intellect in order to think and rethink. Because why would Allah give you something and then tell you not to use it? So what's the point of giving it to me? Huh? Not only that, we believe that not only are we aqil, but that Allah is the Ra'is of the uqala. Ra'is, you know, the same word we use in Swahili, Raisi, means not Rahisi, Ra'is. Ra'is meaning president, if you like, the highest level. He is the highest level of the intelligent beings, because he created intelligence within us and gave it to us. Whatever our intelligence says, Allah will say the same thing. This is our belief, by the way. كُلَّمَا حَكَمَا بِهِ الْعَقْلِ حَكَمَا بِهِ الشَّرْعِ is a statement that we have from our Imams. Whatever your aql tells you, the Sharia or the lawgiver, that is Allah, will tell you the same thing. Allah cannot give you aql, make you think like something and then tell you the opposite of that. I'm not saying that we can just reason by everything and then draw up our own Sharia by it. No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that when our aql tells us something, as a community, not just my aql, my personal aql can be faulty, yours can be faulty. But when we all come together and we agree upon something, then Allah will also agree on that. Because He's the head of all those who have aql. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Let us also remind ourselves that Islam came to free our minds. It did not come to freeze our minds. Some people think that Islam came to freeze our minds. No, on the contrary, it came to free our minds. Even in terms of knowledge, of ilm, there is akhlaq also. I was saying that there is akhlaq in everything that we do. Even when we study, even when we impart knowledge, when we gain knowledge, there is akhlaq. Why? Because whenever I study, whenever you study, it should leave an imprint on my personality. There is a very beautiful dua. You will recall we recite it daily at the time of Asr. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min salatin la turfa wa min du'ain la yusma. Oh my Lord, protect me from that salat which does not ascend or rise up to you. Wa min du'ain la yusma. Protect me from that dua which is not heard. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-aman. I'm asking you for protection. Min ilmin la yanfa. Protect me from that knowledge which does not benefit me. Can you see the function of knowledge? That protect me from that knowledge which does not make me a better human being. What's the point of knowing something and then not doing anything with that knowledge? Therefore, I always say that knowledge not only informs us, it reforms us. At least that's what it's supposed to do. Informing and then reforming. In every scholar, any scholar, there are two things we look for. Whether it's a mujtahid or even your local maulana or any mullah. Two things, remember, knowledge and piety. The two go hand in hand. Because if a person has got a lot of knowledge but has no ethics, then that person is a jahil. Yes, he may have knowledge, but jahalat is not only lack of knowledge, it's also lack of piety, lack of proper moral behavior. Therefore, we always look upon our mujtahids and our scholars that they should have not only knowledge, but they should be humble, they should know how to talk. My friends, as we always say, the more fruits a tree has, what happens? The more it bends, because of the weight of that fruit. The more knowledge a scholar has, the more humble he or she is supposed to be. Because even that knowledge is a burden, and that burden makes a person more humble. Therefore, as I said, it's important that we remember that even knowledge has got ethics in it. The Quran goes even further when it comes to the ethics of knowledge. يُؤْتِي الْحِكْمَةَ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah gives hikmah to whoever He wishes. Notice the Quran doesn't say ilm, it uses the word hikmah. There is a difference between hikmah and ilm, and I will tell you in a minute. يُؤْتِ الْحِكْمَةَ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah gives hikmah to whoever He wishes. وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا, the Quran says. Whoever has been given that hikmah has been given a lot of virtue. خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا, a lot of khair. The Quran doesn't say that about knowledge. It says it about wisdom. What is the difference between wisdom and about knowledge? Because knowledge is stored in the books, in the encyclopedias. Hikmah is stored in the heart. Knowledge is on the shelves. Hikmah is in our personalities. And therefore, knowledge creates a knowledgeable human being. Knowledge creates a knowledgeable human being. Hikmah creates an enlightened human being. There is a difference between a knowledgeable person and an enlightened person. Because an enlightened person, not only is he or she knowledgeable, but he has that light of that knowledge. And that only comes by internalizing that knowledge, and above all, by creating that personality of one who's got that akhlaq with that knowledge. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
That is why, by the way, let us not forget that a teacher is not only a teacher, but above all, he or she is also a mentor. We always pay attention not only to what is being taught, but also who is teaching it. Because the personality of the teacher many a time is transcribed or given to the student. There's always, in the Islamic understanding, there was always a very close connection between the teacher and the student. In the West, a person is known by where he or she studies. I've studied at Harvard and McGill or whatever you may study. I teach at McMaster and so on. Whereas in the West, you are known by where you studied. In the East, you are known by who you studied under. By who you studied under. You may study in Qom or wherever you like, but the teacher imparts his or her personality to you. That's why we have the ijazah. Now, I know that whenever we talk of ijazah, the first thing that comes in our minds is, antaka khums. No, I don't want your khums, don't worry. It's when there are different kinds of ijazah. It's not only the ijazah of khums, the ijazah of ijtihad, for example. Permission to do ijtihad. Ijazah of transmission of hadith. There is also ijazah of hadith, and so on. What does ijazah mean? It's not only permission, it also shows the confidence of the teacher in the pupil. Because when the teacher issues that ijazah, he knows that that student is going to go around showing that ijazah to everybody. That Ayatollah Khoui or Ayatollah Sistani or whoever gave me this ijazah. And that creates confidence in us to the student. Why? Because of the teacher. We know that if Ayatollah Khoui, Ayatollah Sistani, or this whatever Ayatollah show the confidence in that person must not only be knowledgeable, but also have that sense of moral probity, akhlaq at the same time. Therefore, somebody said, and I may have said this before to you, that somebody was asked, why do you love your teacher more than your parents? Why do you love your teacher more than your parents? And he said beautifully, my parents brought me from up there to down here. But my teacher took me from down here to up there. In other words, my teacher nourished me. He or she raised me. And therefore, many a time, by the way, we make that fatal mistake of judging people by their appearances. Because the person has got a big turban, a long beard, and big tasbih, he must be pious. They say it in Urdu. Now, my Urdu is what we used to call in Zanzibar, Urdu ya ki cinema, you know. Not very good, but I know a little bit. Anyway, they say in Urdu, ke दाढ़ी इस्लाम में है, दाढ़ी इस्लाम में है, लेकिन इस्लाम दाढ़ी में नहीं है. Huh? That the beard is in Islam, but Islam does not lie in your beard, by the way. Islam does not lie in your beard. You could have the longest beard in the world if you like, even touching the ground, but that does not mean anything if you do not have the taqwa, the proper thing. So Islam does not reside in your beard. There's a joke being told, which I'd like to share with you before we talk about Karbala. But this just goes to show how we can be fooled by appearances sometimes. That what is important is our taqwa, our knowledge, and our way of behaving, our akhlaq. The story is told of a lady who goes to Mullah Nasruddin. And Mullah used to wear a beautiful, big turban, you know. Apparently they say the bigger the turban, the more knowledge you have. In any case, then she went to the Mullah and asked him a question. And Mullah did not know the answer. Mullah Nasruddin did not know the answer. So he said, look, I'm sorry, but I don't know the answer to that. So the lady got frustrated. You with a big turban like that, and you don't know the answer? What's the point of having the turban? So the Mullah took off his turban and put it on her. He says, well, now you have the turban, now you answer it. What the Mullah was trying to say is that knowledge does not lie on the head, my friends. Knowledge lies in the head. It doesn't lie in the turban, not in the clothes. It lies in what you know and how you internalize that knowledge. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Today is the SIIJLA, and it's a very solemn night. We'll recite the full Chahlum Majlis tomorrow, inshallah. But it's a night where the eyes cry out for what Zainab and the Ahlul Bayt went through. Indeed, as we are aware, Imam Zainul Abidin was asked, what is the most difficult part that you had to endure? And he said 3 times, Asham, Asham, Asham. There were so many ladies who were so brave. Indeed, there was a lady who was even killed in Karbala. The wife of Abu Wahab, called Wahab, she was killed in Karbala. There were those ladies in Karbala itself who were dressing up their children to go and give their lives for Hussein. There were those ladies who stood firm, who spoke out against Umar ibn Sa'ad. Can you imagine Zainab alayha salam? At the most difficult time, she comes out of the Tilla Zainabiyya on the day of Ashura. What does she find? That Shimr is sitting on the chest of Hussein. Look at the courage of this lady. In a culture where women did not speak out, you know what does Zainab do? She summons the courage within her and she shouts to the whole army of Yazid, is there a Muslim amongst you? 3 times she says, is there a Muslim amongst you? Because if there is, then you would not let this happen. And when nobody answered, Zainab turns to Umar ibn Sa'ad. Ya ibn Sa'ad, ayuqtalu Abu Abdullah wa anta tanzur? Will Hussein be killed while you are just watching? Do something. I want to talk very briefly about another lady whom we hardly ever talk about. And yet she was with Zainab wherever Zainab went. There were actually 2 Zainabs, both of them the daughters of Ali and Fatima. Zainab al-Kubra and Zainab al-Sughra. Zainab al-Kubra is the one that we normally call Zainab. Zainab al-Sughra is Kulthum. Kulthum was the one who was so pious. She, by the way, was a widow. She was in Karbala. She was everywhere with Imam Hussein and with Zainab until she came back to Medina. She was a widow because she was married to Muhammad bin Ja'far al-Tayyar. Ja'far al-Tayyar had 2 sons, Abdullah and Muhammad, amongst many others. And Muhammad had married Kulthum. Unfortunately, he had passed away, so she was a widow. This Kulthum was so pious, so ethical, that the scholars agree that she was mahfuz anil khata. Mahfuz anil khata means she was free from error. She was free from sin, that she had elevated herself to such a level of piety that she would not go around sinning. If you go to Damascus, you will see her qabr. Later on, she went back to Damascus and she is buried in the Bab al-Saghir, in that big cemetery in Damascus. And yet she was also very eloquent. We hardly ever hear much about Kulthum. We may have heard the name, primarily because it was in her house that Imam Ali broke his fast on the 19th of Ramadan. But she also was very close to Hussein. At the last point before Imam Hussein died, he turns to Kulthum, says, bring me some old clothes. Kulthum says, my brother, why do you want your old clothes? He says, so that when these enemies, when they kill me, hopefully they will not at least keep the sanctity of my body. They will leave these old clothes on it. And he actually even tore the clothes so that they would leave the clothes there. This was Kulthum, that when she enters Kufa, she starts speaking out. Before even Hazrat Zainab, Kulthum spoke out. Oh people, why did you kill Hussein? Do you know who we are? Do you know the head, who that person was? This was Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of the Prophet, the son of Fatima, the son of Ali. O people of Kufa, how dare you imprison the family of the Prophet? What sins have we committed? The people started crying. Kulthum, by the way, was a very powerful speaker. The women of Kufa especially, we are told, they started scratching their faces, pulling their hair. Some of them were tearing their clothes, and they were beating themselves. O people of Kufa, have we done wrong to you? Do you know who we are? Do you know how much you have hurt the Prophet, not only us today? It is said that because of Kulthum, people, even the men, wept openly, so much so that Kufa had never ever seen people cry so much. But because of Kulthum, the people started giving out dates as sadaqah to the children. And Kulthum says, oh people, don't do that. Don't you know that we are the Ali Rasul? We are the family of the Prophet. You should not be giving us sadaqah because sadaqah is haram for us. When they heard that, people started crying even more. Kulthum says, your men are killing us and your women are weeping for us. Hi, Azadar and Hussein. I will talk more about Zainab and about Damascus tomorrow. But just one or two anecdotes before I finish. Where Zainab was speaking in Kufa, and then from Kufa she was going towards Sham. When she stood at the Darbar of Sham, the riwayat tells us that outside the Darbar, as they were being led inside, Zainab for the final time, she turns towards Medina. And then she turns towards Najaf of all places. Zainab turns towards Najaf and she says, oh my father, you tell me how can your daughter enter into this darbar? Well, there are people who are drinking and there are singing girls. But Zainab was forced to enter the darbar of Yazid. We will talk more about what happened in the Darbar of Yazid tomorrow. But this much I want to tell you also, that as the Kafila, the Ahlul Bayt were being paraded in Damascus, Imam Zainul Abidin was looking. There was an old man who was gloating and who was laughing away. Imam called him and he says, have you heard of the family of the Prophet? The man said, yes. Have you heard of the verse in the Quran that the Quran says that I have revealed this in the family of the Prophet? That La asalukum ajra illa mawaddatil qurba. He says, yes, I know this verse. Have you heard of the verse of Tathir? He said, yes. Then the man is asking, well, why are you asking me all these questions? Imam Zainul Abidin says, this is because we are the Ahl Rasul. This verse was of the Quran were revealed in our house. The one that you are laughing at is actually the grandson of the Prophet. The old man started crying so much, says, Mawla, will you forgive me? Because I had not heard any of this. Azadar and Hussein, I have finished my majlis, but one final anecdote. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but final anecdote is this, that when the Kafila reached Karbala, as they were about to leave Karbala to go back to Medina now, Zainab is making sure that everybody is mounted on the camel, but she sees one camel is empty. There's no lady there. Zainab looks around the plains of Karbala. She sees there is one tent. There is one tent and a lady is crying in it. Zainab enters the tent. Umar Rabab, we are about to leave for Medina. Let us go to Medina. Umar Rabab says, I cannot go anywhere. My Asghar is lying here. My Asghar is lying here. Rabab lived in Karbala for 1 whole year before she went back to Medina. لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسین.
Sadiq Rahili, go ahead.
مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین شبیر کی وہ اولاد لی سینے پہ جو شاک پلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی جس کی ابا بن میں جلی منہ پر تماشوں کے نشاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ زینبو کلثوم تھی چادر سے جو محروم تھی نام رمو کی درمیاں نام رمو کی درمیاں اور مرتضیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ باوفا عباس تھا پھپھیوں کی جو راس تھا پانی ملا جو نہ پیا پانی ملا جو نہ پیا معصوم کا احساس تھا مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین پیاسے گلے خنجر چلے چادر چنی خیمے چلے عباس کے پرچم تلے عباس کے پرچم تلے روتی رہی سردانیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین صلوات
اللهم صل
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Shabir uncle, go ahead.
آج اربعین ہے حسین کا قبر مصطفیٰ سے آتی ہے صدا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا وا محمدا وا مصیبتا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا اہل بیت کا آیا قافلہ تحفہ لائے ہے خاک کربلا اہل بیت کا آیا قافلہ تحفہ لائے ہے خاک کربلا بیویوں میں آج شور ہے بکا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا وا محمدا وا مصیبتا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا زین العابدین آج آتے ہیں پیچھے بیویوں کا کاروان ہے زین العابدین آج آتے ہیں پیچھے بیویوں کا کاروان ہے آسمان سے آتی ہے صدا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا وا محمدا وا مصیبتا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا زین العابدین کرتے ہیں مکا بھائی جاتی ہوں گھر کو الوداع زینب ہنسی کرتی ہے بکا بھائی جاتی ہوں گھر کو الوداع آئیے صدا حافظ خدا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا و محمدہ و مصیبتا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا دیکھیے نشان ریسمار کی بات کیا کروں قید خانے کی دیکھیے نشان ریسمان کی بات کیا کروں قید خانے کی سر کھلا ہوا شہر بانو کا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا و محمدہ و مصیبتا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا لاڈلی سکینہ ہائے مر گئی روتے روتے تم کو نیند چھا گئی لاڈلی سکینہ ہائے مر گئی روتے روتے تم کو نیند چھا گئی شام میں سنا کہ آئی ہوں یہاں آج اربعین ہے حسین کا و محمدہ و مصیبتا آج اربعین ہے حسین کا آخر کا وقت کہنا میرا یہ سلام ہے سب عاشق حسین کو میرا سلام ہے ایک دن اسی طرح سے یہ دنیا تمام ہے پر شاہ کربلا کا اذانہ تمام ہے دنیا نہ رہے گی مگر اسلام رہے گا شبیر بہرحال تیرا نام رہے گا آئندہ سال پھر بھی ملیں گے یہاں غلام حامی اگر حسین علیہ السلام کا حل کیجئے مشکل میری اب دیر ستم ہے عباس علی تم کو سکینہ کی قسم ہے یا موسی کاظم ہمیں آفت سے چھڑاؤ یا موسی کاظم ہمیں آفت سے چھڑاؤ بہرے حسن حسین مصیبت سے بچاؤ الفاتحہ
احسنت. Ahsan, thank you so much, Uncle Shabir, for gracing us tonight. May Allah grant you his infinite blessings to you and your family. And inshallah, we get to see you again.
I will move to LA.
Inshallah, inshallah. We
If
look
the
forward.
taxes are low, if the taxes are low, I will move.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you, Uncle Shabir, inshallah.
No.
All right, so before we conclude with Ziyarat, inshallah, just let's recite also 5 times Dua Shifa, again for Uncle Mujtaba Datu, who had surgery yesterday, and also for those who are sick in our family and around the world. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra iza da'ahu wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Dr. Takim, thank you very much. Dr. Liyakat Takim, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Super modest, Dr. Takim. Thank you. I hope you come to New York.
Well, it was great to see you again, Shabir. It was just amazing, you know. Unanikumbusha Unguja. You're taking back 6
Domana nasoma hizi sasa hivi kabla kusoma LA, I was doing Allentown and I'm getting messages watu wanakumbuka Unguja. Purposely I read the Zanzibari style.
You take me back 60 years, mashallah. God
Thank you,
bless.
Dr. Takim. Super mullis. I hope you come to New York, doctor.
Well, whenever they want me to, I'll be there.
When I was there, I called you, remember?
Yeah. Well,
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll conclude with Yarat, inshallah. Fatima, if you're ready, Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار ولا جاءه الله آخر عهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك يا أبو الفضل العباس السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلام عليك يا سلطان أبو الحسن يا علي بن موسى رضا السلام عليك يا فاطمة معصومة السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن حسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأينا حتى تسكنه أرزك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you, Fatima. Great job, mashallah. With that, inshallah, so our program tomorrow, final program for tomorrow will start at 8 p.m. inshallah with Arbaeen, and then we'll commence with our program as we did today. With that, that ends our program for tonight. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bye.
Asante.